Okay. Are we good? Is this working? We are on. So welcome back to a brand new podcast. And this is going to be kind of sick. First time doing two setups. But also I'm going to give like a slight introduction because there's a lot of new eyes on me. So this is the first time, and if you're first time coming around, introduce myself. Pardon me, it's 12 o'clock, but name is obviously Yanni. I feel like that's always weird, like introducing myself socially as like that. I don't know. I feel like it's a weird, whatever. I feel like it's weird. Hey, my name is Yanni. But anyway, yeah. So a lot of new eyes on me. So I figured give like a not so formal introduction in terms of like what this podcast is about. And obviously now that you guys have landed on this one, and if you have, you guys can go back and kind of see the way this podcast is like executed, and it's not so like, like put your shirt on, button your shirt up and tie your tie. This is a very opinionated podcast, and I don't really care if feelings are hurt. Like I said, it's a very opinionated podcast. I think it's super important for people to have opinions nowadays. That doesn't mean I'm looking to be right. I'm not looking to be wrong. It's just what I think, and it's just increasing vulnerability. And what this little series is, because if you guys kind of go back and check the podcast and stuff like that, you'll notice Andy on, I think most of them, honestly, most of the ones where we were together it was Andy, and then there's George and Greg. We got the girls on it, so me and Andy typically run it, like on ends in terms of like topics, and there's a lot of car stuff and stuff like that. But for me personally, what this little mini series is called is Beyond Bodybuilding. So it's a little further, more into like the mental fortitude of like just quite literally beyond bodybuilding. So like what the weight room has taught me, what I went into it thinking, how I'm coming out of it, on the better side of things and all that stuff. So kind of just go back and run a little bit of the podcast and stuff like that, because I'm not going to make this such a long, like, hey, like fucking first day of school type of shit. So, but this is the first time also doing the dual setup, so I'm super happy, and I'm hoping in theory when I go to record it, when I go to edit it after, it's a lot smoother. But playing off the topic of beyond bodybuilding and where it stems from and where it stems from, and like the root of it is just me, myself, and the weight and an empty gym. And it just so happened to a now newly embarked on journey is Just Lift, which a lot of you guys have started following me and stuff like that. So just to give you guys a little insight on that in terms of like investing with Mike and stuff like that, and taking over the creative end of things, and giving my input where I can, and kind of using my leverages and like in the bodybuilding community in terms of like who I know, what I know, who I've worked with and stuff like that, because obviously now that I'm invested, it's now like a me thing. And I don't mean that in like a very like personal way, but it's just like now that I'm involved, I'm going to make sure I'm going to put my best foot forward. And I expressed that to Mike a ton of times where if it was only for me and I didn't make the initial jump to be a part of the team and XYZ, then I was just only going to look out for myself. And as selfish as that may have sounded, it was just like I just needed to make sure my bodybuilding career was pursuing and XYZ. And my rule of thumb is personal, friends, and family and community. So if I can make personal progress and have fun with it in the process, along with benefiting family and friends, and then how to tie back to the community, which has always been a social status, a social point in terms of like giving you guys like information or helping you with workouts and XYZ. And then as long as I can have fun in all three pillars, then I'll never quit whatever I'm doing. I do also do car stuff. Thankful to have and had super rare cars in the past. Current one is the Skyline GTR, which is not really on the page. There's one pinned up on top, but we're building that. So, but I kind of took that off Instagram because like going off of what I said on the last podcast was cutting off some access and having something for me and stuff like that. And I guess that kind of dives right into the what I was trying to what the topic of like most of this is played out to be in terms of like the mental fortitude and perspective of things, because I had to just kind of release and strip some stuff away from social media, because giving you guys full access which is what I thought I wanted to do, and and I hope you guys don't take this in like a negative way, but it's like if I give you guys everything, then I have nothing to enjoy for myself personally. So gaining and understanding that that social animal and like that my personal anxiety when it comes to it, it was something that I needed to do for myself and kind of take it away. And it just so happened it helps that like I'm doing what I'm doing to the GTR, so it just like aids that process of like pulling it off the internet and stuff like that. Even though when I get it back, I'm sure I'm gonna be posting it, but maybe not nearly as much, and it'll be in the videos, obviously because it's mine and I own it. But in terms of like really like flexing it and doing this and doing that, I don't think I'm gonna be doing too much of it. I'm sure I'll do a little bit of it, but I'm really proud of just like where the page or like the chapter, metaphorically speaking, has like turned in terms of like where life has went and stuff like that, because I didn't realize how important this stuff was to me and how many lives I'm able to thankfully and blissfully touch and like kind of change throughout that aspect. Because I think the full arithmetic of like purpose and finding yourself is like finding what you're really good at, like providing a way to make it easier for other people, from just a very black and white perspective. And from a not so black and white perspective is how can it get you out of your own way to, one, offer your sufferings and, like give your knowledge or whatever it is in terms of like whatever field you're into, and how to actually just, I don't know, just help and get yourself out of your own way to help other people. Not necessarily in that field, but in terms of just like providing a calling, a purpose to somebody else's life and helping them out and getting out of your own way. And in reality, people watching you get out of your own way. I say it all the time. A lot of people are waiting on your dreams to come true just so they can start theirs. So taking that calling and putting that pressure on people, and more importantly myself, is what got me out of my way. So quick intro tangent, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we're here. Now time to dive. I did kind of write down some stuff in terms of to gain some structure and stuff like that. But like I said, like I mentioned already, this is going to be like a mental fortitude, just kind of like playing off that word of like, that terminology of beyond bodybuilding. And let's start with vision and how it's not the lack of one, but it's the depth perception. So it's fully seeing it all the way through. So it's not that we don't have a vision, it's just that we lack to literally see it all the way through. Because the problem is like, and I tell people all the time, is like we're not, and me personally, take it with a grain of salt, I'm a dumbass, but I cannot put something inside this fucking cranium or inside my skull, inside my head, whatever you want to call it, that I'm like smart enough to think on my own. I haven't thought of anything. I'm not an inventor or this or that. I am super good at seeing things all the way through though. So I've kind of taken that self-proclaimed role of like being a creator, quite literally through the lens and telling a story, one project at a time, and the biggest project of all being my own. And just being able to see things that really aren't there. Like, you have to be fucking insane. It comes down to a part of being like creative and imaginative. And it's just super. I don't know if people can understand. A lot of times I say you'll never see, if you don't see it before you see it, you'll never see it. That's like kind of my thing. And stick a thumbnail in that, because that's gonna be a big project coming up soon. But that's always been me. I've always just believed in people when they didn't believe in themselves, believed in brands when they didn't believe a way out. I just quite literally had this conversation with Mike months on end and weeks leading into it before I made the initial announcement. I think the first question I asked him is like, are you ready to expand? I was like, 'cause I'm just gonna blow it up. I'm just like really good at painting a picture for people, like for in such a murky world that we live in, and like everybody's so not corrosive, but just like it's foggy. There's no clarity. We're out of focus. We kind of know what we want to do, but really just waste time, like trying to find, and like dabbling into like XYZ and like not really seeing all the way through. And it jumps quite literally right into the second standpoint that I labeled and wrote down, which is like seamless. And I'm super proud that I transitioned into that. But for me personally, I wrote down, there's 100 things we can do. The one thing that matters the most is the pick. And the more successful you are, the more picks you get. And the only guarantee, if you pick them all, is you're going to... Let's rerun that. there's there's 100 things we can do. The one thing that matters most is the pick, and the more successful you are, the more picks you get. And the only guarantee, the only guarantee is if you pick them all, you get none. So my biggest demon, and I mentioned Andy, and I'm gonna drop his name a couple times because that's just like he's like my fucking staple. He keeps me grounded when it comes to like being aligned with my goals and visions and stuff like that. So like, if you don't have that friend that like literally tells you what to do, and not tells you what to do, but like really hones you in on like what you want to do and holds you to a higher standard, just because of like what your beliefs are, and tells you how it is, and is not afraid to hurt your feelings for the bigger purpose, then yeah, find one. But going back to that statement is I've been blessed once I did quit my job to do a bunch of things, and that's not necessarily a good thing. It's a very very like flexible area where you're just like, like when you first jump into it, dive into that pool of like wanting to be an entrepreneur or self-employed, and that aspect of things is time is like your biggest resource, in the most positive way and then the most negative way. So you can't really do everything, and you really just have to hone in. And my biggest problem is I hate being like stationary or stagnant, and I never want it to be. So I quote two-dimensional in terms of like, oh, just doing bodybuilding or just doing cars and stuff like that, because I've done detailing for about half a decade. Kind of did it right out of school type of thing, and it was good money. It was great money, and I have a good home setup and stuff like that. And prior to this jump, I was looking at, and again, everything happens for a reason, jumping into a shop with a friend, which again, thank God, like I always say that all the time, like I have a plan, and God laughs, and like, you can't look at it like every failed opportunity as like, oh fuck, like, and like just run yourself into the floor and like, oh, we'll get him next time, because it's just like I just got to keep moving. I can't really be sad or like, like you can, but don't like stop moving. So my biggest thing is I was doing that, like I just newly found bodybuilding or just working out. Actually, it wasn't even bodybuilding. Started working with a couple brands, got out of my social bubble, because I'm super, and this is going to be impossible to believe because I am doing better, but like even, just this social anxiety, and deep down I am an introvert. So like a lot of this is just like me putting on the camera and stuff like that. It's almost like not a prep and stuff like that, but it's like, it's not hard for me to create content because my life is content in terms of like, I already have a mission, a goal, a plan, XYZ. It's not hard for me to pick a thumbnail. It's not hard for me to pick a video to record on. It's just like everything is moving with purpose. I'm not like, oh, let's pick up a camera and let's do this today, unless like I want to be like super creative and stuff like that. Like from the creative perspective, you have to create, for lack of better terms, but like in terms of like what I'm actually talking about or content and where the video is going and how to mitigate it. No, like I just, it's very like I'm either in a prep and an off season, doing this with the gym, doing that with the gym, working with this person, investing in this person, or then if it's not that, it's cars, and if it's not cars, it's just relaxing and doing fun stuff creatively with camera, just photos on both subjects, on cars and people, and with raw nutrition. And I didn't even mention that, but at the beginning of the video, but my sponsor from both down in Stuart, Florida, is Get Raw Nutrition on this sport supplemental side of things, and for health and wellness is Revive, and that is my only sponsor. I don't plan on teaming up with anybody else. I don't want to. It's just I also don't like influencers that are just like they have like 1,000,005 codes on like supplements and another supplement and whatever. But yeah, I'm just super in honed in terms of like spreading myself way too thin. So if I didn't choose like one route or this route or that route, and like for me, like I really sat back and I looked and I was like, all right, where did the last couple of years take me? What has it done for me in XYZ? And like I took the bodybuilding stage, metaphorically speaking, by storm, and went on and won obviously summer shredding in Texas with Alphalete. Was sponsored with them for like a year and a half, 2 years. That landed me with Raw, and obviously the Raw story, just a quick recap, like I said, for the new viewers and the new eyes, is Chris, Dom, and Matt flew a handful of us out, I think like 4 or 5 people. Saw the operation, XYZ. They're relatively young. They're still, I was gonna say 2 years old, but we're in 2023 now. But yeah, almost 3 years old. I think it's in October. It's 3 years old. But and basically just instilled in me like, hey, we just want to build you XYZ, along with all the other candidates that flew down. And that's what really changed everything for me. And I was like, well, what is it in bodybuilding that like I keep going back to? And I think it's just I don't want to be corny and say the disciplinary factor, but it really is that. It's like really just honing in to be like, to constantly beating myself up and like using the pain from like just past and this and that, because I'm very very pain oriented, from just past mistakes, both inflicted, self, not literally, but just like situations that I put myself in that I personally fucked up, situations that have fucked me over, I fucked people over, like get your heart broken, go break a heart, XYZ, like the whole nine. And I'm not just casting over that like it's nothing, but I'm talking about it now freely because like I just, when it comes down to it, and I wrote it down here, it's pain is far more effective than pleasure is. And the easiest way to prove that is, and I think Alex said this, is point a gun at someone's head, and you'll have compliance with them within the snap of a finger. And it's not that, and every, if you're watching this, you're like, oh yeah, that, like, of course, like my life's on the line, but like death has always been the greatest motivator, whether you like understand it or not. Like we're limited on time, and like what social media did is it gave us this concept of like an infinite time hole, whether it be video games or Instagram or YouTube or this or that. I can quite literally go back on my journey when I was, like smiling, getting into bodybuilding and knocking on doors and doing this and doing that, metaphorically speaking. And like, you can quite literally see the smile deteriorate throughout the years just because of the pain and mistakes I've made and bad that's been done against me. But it literally has just driven me so, it's driven such a purpose that like and the biggest thing is like sorry, I wrote them down, but I did like 1, 2, 3, 4, but whatever. But the number one thing was so going back to the vision thing that I started with is lack of depth perception is and I think Russ mentioned it, but what if it could turn out better than imagined? What if it could turn out better than you imagined? And that's just something that has stuck with me, and something I hear like across all of like podcast talkers and stuff like that is the whole boy man talk, in terms of like like boys do things emotionally, and men are just gonna do what they have to do, and like boys are just gonna be like, oh, I should do this, and men are just gonna just do it anyway, in terms of like just getting what needs to be done. It's like it's not, and actually I don't even want to butcher it because I think I might have written it down, but it has to, yeah, so boys are confident, men are certain. It's not about doing your best, it's about doing what's required. So like that often means, and tying it back into the gym and stuff like that, is you're gonna, and everybody does, no one's perfect, but you're gonna have shit days, quite literally, in the gym and that stuff. And is it like a terrible, like, are you like hurt, sore, XYZ, or is it just like, oh, my boss yelled at me, or like I got a disagreement with my mom, or my girlfriend is, and like I swear to God, like you can label any excuse, and like I've been through it all, death, like cheated on, like whatever, like you name it, like literally you name it, and it's like there's not one problem out there that, and this is the thing, there's not one problem out there that exists that nobody hasn't gone through. So it's like insert whatever excuse here. It's like if there's gonna be pain and sorrow and anger and resentment and this and that, like you may as well use it. So like that goes back to what I said, that like pain is far more effective. Like, I mean, if you don't use it, it's just gonna consume you. So like, why waste it? And going back to what I was saying earlier is and where it grew me as an individual is because like there's not a thing out there, like being a social creature, like on social media and stuff like that, there's not a single thing out there that like I don't already know about myself, like whether it be bad, good, XYZ. It's like I literally, like I'm not going to pan over to it, but there's a body mirror, quite literally, when I get changed every morning, I have to stand right in front of it and I don't have to look at it, I could look the other way, but stare right in the mirror and look at it, and and it's just like, I don't want to label it positive affirmations, but it's just like the sad reality of like decisions that I've made that like weren't often so good. And not so sad reality of it is like, I look in there every day, and I'm just like, damn, we're doing this, we're doing that, like we're doing great, pat on the back, and then like it's a new day. And then same thing though, it's kind of like when you're down, like watch your emotions, and when you're up, watch your tongue, because it's like everything's gonna pass. And I think Jim Carrey said that best. Or was it Jim Carrey? Somebody said it. But like the whole "this too shall pass." So like if you're down, it's fine. If you're up, humble yourself. You're gonna level. So you'll like literally always level. So like quite literally giving myself that responsibility and looking myself in the mirror every day and be like, hey, you fucked up yesterday. Or, hey, you did that yesterday. And Andy brought out a good point. I don't know if he said it on the podcast or said it to me personally, but he was like, he's like, nobody does that. And nobody does do that, because like it just, right, no one wants to look in the mirror every day and be like, hey, I fucked up, or hey, I'm a liar, hey, I'm a cheat, hey, I'm a this, hey, I'm a that. Like no one wants to take that responsibility. And like I just wish you guys can like feel it through this video or through this message, that like if you just like not let go, but just like allow yourself to just like that, like yes, you are your decisions and your choices, but like you're also like, after you make that choice, it is now literally up to you. Like, whether do you want to keep feeding into that, or like do you just want to be like, hey, I made that choice, I fucked up, own it, proclaim it, XYZ, and then like move on. Like, yes, I'll always be there, but like, I mean, we mature with pain. So like the reason why my learning curve was just like fucking astronomical is because I wasn't the guy that got it right. I was the guy that fucked up all the time. And from a young age, it's like why I've been able to grow at such a rapid pace, because I literally went out there, lost money, lost feelings, lost friends, lost family, and it shapes you, it molds you. But it's like I can't really lose track of the mission, because I remember just being younger and like just like wishing and praying and whatever you believe in, or just like hoping that like it's got to get better. I can't just stay the norm and like follow that. Damn, I just clipped it. And follow that route in terms of like, it's like the 40-year plan or just whatever. Like, it's got to get better. Like, there's no way I'm looking at whoever, and not to say like, right, because comparison is the thief of joy, but I am also competitive. So it's like I'm looking at stuff at like my peers and stuff like that, and I'm comparing myself to high people. And it's just like, and nobody has to do that, right? Like, you can compare yourself to, whoever, but like the multitude of it is like you are who you surround yourself with. Like, show me your 5 friends, and I'll tell you this, and I'll show you you're the 6th type of thing. And bringing that full circle is like, all right, well, who's in my ear? Who am I listening to? And I learned a lot throughout the years from not listening. So like I listen to everybody, but like comprehend very few. So like breaking that statement down by learning a lot by not listening, that was a simple term, but like breaking it down is like, yeah, I listened to everybody growing up in terms of like quite literally giving them a physical ear, and like not literally, but like in terms of like giving them an ear and a listen and seeing what they have to say, because even the ones that weren't saying anything had something to say, and then the ones that were saying something still had something to say, even if what they were saying didn't make sense, because it was just like, okay, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, okay, that person doesn't know what they're talking about, but like, hey, this guy's quiet, like, why is he quiet? And like all throughout the years I've just become very, very like quiet, and like if you're a friend to me, like I'm not quiet, but like for no one who knows me, mine is just like through the lens and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a breaking point with me in terms of like breaking that cold contact, in terms of like, hey, like, and this and that, because I'll literally, my biggest thing is I want to change lives, and that goes full circle into like kind of what this podcast and stuff like that is about, just to kind of like introduce myself to you guys, not so much to new viewers, but it's like what it's like to work with me, that you're working with a very in my opinion, what I believe to be a very like methodical, purpose-driven person. I'm just very honed in on like progress and success, and I don't really think it's motivation. It's more consistency and discipline and persistency in that order. It's just like really just doing the things you're supposed to be doing. And I often put a lot more pressure on the guys than I do the females. But I obviously have a handful of females that do work with me, but not to say I don't push one over the other more, but I also know what it's like being a man, that like I know our thresholds and what we need to hear sometimes, and I will never be nor can I be in the thought process of a female, so I don't know the thresholds and stuff like that. So I kind of like tread carefully when it comes to pushing the standards and stuff like that. Again, if I'm allowed more, I give more and stuff like that. I always give people responsibility, and if they either step up or they fuck up, and then we either move forward or we don't. That's another like rule of thumb I have with life, moving up. But yeah, going off of all of that and kind of like a little background story on it, there's really no need to actively cut someone off or be like, hey, fuck you, or hey, like this isn't that. I have done it in the past. I don't do it anymore. Only because just grow at such a rate that like they only know what they once knew about you and like what you're allowing to be perceived through you on social media and stuff like that, because it is very much a part of our world. It might quite literally be our world right now, but like it's only like it's a level of perception. Like what you put out there, they're often highlight reels. They're not like this happy stuff and stuff like that. Although now we are getting a little more raw in terms of like just getting truths out there and like being more vulnerable and stuff like that, which is super cool because it's allowing people to, one, heal, two, let people know that there are other people out there, XYZ, going through the same thing, and then it allows people to move forward. And then it goes hand in hand, this statement and what I'm about to say, but being super introverted and like kind of where my biggest personal jump was with moving forward with Mike and Just Lift and taking that initial jump in investment was I needed to be in the environment to affect the environment. So I'm also a super late. I mean, it's 1:30 right now. Yes. Super late going. I'm also like working at like odds hours of the night. If you're following me on Instagram, you guys see that I'm literally from like 1 a.m. to like 7 a.m. I'm alive, and then like from 7 a.m. to like, I don't know, like I'm home. I mean 7 a.m. to like when you guys are normally working, so like 9 to 5 and stuff like that. That's when I'll do like my normally day stuff. But then like from like 6 p.m. or more from like 4 p.m. From 4 p.m. like on, from 4 p.m. to like midnight, I'm just home. I don't want to be around a lot of people. And it's hard for me to say that because of where I live in Lower Westchester. But I just don't like, if I can put myself in a situation where I don't have to be surrounded by a lot of people, then like that's, if I could just put myself in a better situation, I tell people just do it. It's not that you're running from your problems. It's just like if you know you're more sound in a specific situation as opposed to the other, then like that's what you just got to do, what you got to do. But where my learning curve with all of that is there's no amount of money that can buy back time. And I often fall into the loophole of like, damn, because like now that everybody's has been so like kind and welcoming into like the Just Lift family and stuff like that, in terms of like the new followers and like the new DMs and XYZ and like introducing myself and meeting people, that's still like very hard for me to do. I do put on a good mask, and not to say that I'm hiding anything, but I do put on a good face in terms of like, not that I don't want to meet people, because like we need people, unfortunately, but it's just like I do put on a good, like a poker face in terms of like, not that I don't mean it genuinely, but it's exhausting for me. There's anxiety in it for me, and the reason why I picked up the camera, for a lot of you guys are like, oh, this guy can't be antisocial or an introvert. Like this was my way of like communicating with you guys. That's why I'm like, oh, I have to make it big because my story has to be learned and taught, and like to see if it can help somebody. But like I don't know if I could do it in like a social crowd and stuff like that. So that was kind of my like silver lining in terms of like, how can I communicate with people without actually communicating with people, which is thankfully this stuff now. And yeah, it's the reason why. Yeah, I mentioned it like earlier, that social media created this idea of like an infinite time span, like and like the social realm, there's no time. I can post this in a year from now and you guys wouldn't even know the date. I can post it tomorrow and you guys wouldn't even know the date. If I don't give a date, you just know the upload date, but it could have been recorded in the past. It could have been recording here or there. I could be in India, Dubai, like wherever, you know what I mean? So like there's no, and like the reason why I've become so fond of like now going out of my way and being in my environment to affect my environment. Again, going back to that statement is like, if I can't get out of my own way, I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do. And that's like shape people's lives, help people through personal training. And like, I guess from just like a mentorship, like coaching perspective through life and stuff like that, just because, my biggest flex is like, I'm doing a lot off of social media. And like, that's amazing that I still hold like real true values to the core and like the principles of my effects and stuff like that, where like social media is like, I can, because I don't, it was my full time. And it is still full time, but it's like now that I'm weaning more towards like a traditional business route, this is still an income, but it's like now I'm not so much careful with what I say and stuff like that because I am making like real money. Again, not that social media is not real money, but it's like I just can't help but think, and me and Hindi have this conversation every day that like sometimes this stuff can just go away at the snap of a finger, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, YouTube, whatever it may be. So like just to make sure I have like a real foundation on like on a ground level, physically and literally, I want to make sure like that's okay. So doing a lot without social media and then adding it into it kind of gave me that flair and like that pop in my life of like, yeah, I'm just gonna come on and say what I want to say. I'm gonna come out of left field and like, who the fuck is this kid? And like, no one knows anything about me, unless like I'm telling you about me or like you're watching the videos and like kind of, playing connect the dots in terms of like what I do. And you can't really, and the reason why life has become so precious and like why I started to do personal training, because I've always just dabbled with it in the past, but like now like really diving into it is because like the gateway was like, oh, I can make you look good. But like on top of all of that, like how can I, like, are you happy at home? Are you happy with your girl? Are you happy with your man? Is the family okay? Is work okay? Are you okay? Can I push you out of your comfort zone a little bit? Again, if I'm allowed to. Some people just want training and that's fine. But like for people who want more, and I'm always going to aspire people to want more. Again, it goes back to being like the whole creator of like that self-proclaimed role that I took, because it's just like I'm pushing people out of their comfort zone. And I think the biggest thing is like on top of like most guys wanting to be believed in, because I feel like that's what most guys want, is everybody wants to influence both male and females. I think more so guys, only because not that it feels like could be an incorrect term, but not like an authority or like an authoritative figure. But it's like when people are listening to you, it's like, oh my God, like I'm doing something right or XYZ. It's like it's not braggadocious or like ego filling, but like it's like you feel like there's a purpose and like you're doing something right. And it's like sometimes it can go to your head and it's, sometimes good, sometimes bad, like that's a tangent in and of itself. But I think that the whole thing is like to inspire, and like why most people want to be influencers is because yeah, they want to be heard, they want to be believed in, they want to be, minus like the fucking commission codes. I'm talking like deeper than the surface. But like having a mission and having a calling is I think like really being an influencer, not in like the grammatical, like in the quite literal social term in terms of like I have a discount code and this is that, but just like literally influencing throughout life. And not to say like those discount codes can't, because like that's just a gateway drug into like, oh, I could do more, and like this is a way like that other brands can use me and like promote me in XYZ. So like I get that aspect of it, and it was super cool. It is super cool, and like that's what I do with Raw Revive and stuff like that. Is a lot of people just want to create content like just for the sole purpose of creating content, and like I mentioned that before, that like if you're picking up a camera and it feels like a job in terms of like, oh, I have to do this today, or I have to put on a certain face today, I have to do this, I have to do that today. I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should really have a mission before picking up that stuff, because it's like that's why people get stale. YouTube is a hard animal to grab hold of. This is not Instagram. This is not Reels. This is not TikTok. This is like you need to either entertain, give either like like motivational or disciplinary like acts of like advice, or like something that promotes good stuff and stuff like that. It's just like you have to like make sure there's like a mission or like a calling or whatever. As silly as it may be, there's a crowd for everything, but it's like you really have to stick to that and like want that. So you can't just like pick up one day and be like, because it's like live with the hype, die with the hype. I say that all the time, and I don't know if YouTube is really hype and stuff like that. Like you really have to have a niche in terms of like what direction you want to go and stuff like that. And that's why that tied into like bodybuilding and stuff like that. So yeah, I get the concept of like wanting to influence, but it's like who's really going to listen to you? Like look at your life. And again, it goes back to what I was saying before about like looking in the mirror, stuff like that. Like, are you really gonna like write down a list of like 5 people that are like moving you in life? Like, are you writing yourself down as one? Like, and I hear that all the time, and I was like, like, and I would reiterate and reciprocate that to myself in terms of like what I listen to myself. Like, what am I doing on a daily, like daily accountability? Like, is my integrity high? Am I practicing what I'm preaching? Am I just, like yelling at a cloud? Am I not? Like I'm telling people to go to the gym, am I going to the gym? Like, and I always was, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why even the simple things of like go to the gym, like the funny shit that we, like we started with not we meaning me, but like a lot of people do it, but like why, you know, like I started in my like circle of like, and like influence cloud, whatever you want to call it. As people started putting up, is because like, yeah, it is simple, but like for me it's like such an act of like, hey, just wake up and do it every day, regardless if money's low, feelings are low, families are, you know, bothering me, friends are bothering me, or girlfriend broke up with me, or they like whatever. It was just like gym was always the answer. Like it literally was, and not that it was that, not that the gym itself was the answer, but the gym gave me the clarity to like now come home and execute. Because if you're just going to the gym 7 days a week, 2 hours a day, I don't know if fitness is now an additive to your life, and I can say that like with my chest out, like proudly, because like if you're going, like you're obviously avoiding something. If you're going that long and that consistently, I'm talking like no rest, like it's literally an addiction. I don't know if that's healthy. You're doing it to kind of avoid something, and like you may need to do it for a little bit to kind of like gain the clarity, and I'm all for that. But like just make sure when you go home, like you execute deep down, like that you're like, hey, like fix the problem, right? Like use the gym as like leverage, go gain the clarity, and then come home and execute, whether it be work, girlfriend, boyfriend, family, friends, whatever, you know, like personal issues you're going through, like just use the gym as that, but then like go home and like continue to work on it. Don't just go there to decompress and then go come back home and like do the same thing, because that's just like a vicious cycle of just like I'm waiting to go to the gym, and then like you go and then you come back home and like nothing changes, and like you keep doing that week in and week out. It's like I don't know if you're making much progress, and if you're only going to the gym to move weights, you're missing 90% of the picture. That's my that's always been my statement. So that's kind of why the whole beyond bodybuilding and like my level of vulnerability has reached an uncomfortable standpoint in terms of like what I say to the camera and stuff like that, but it's helping people. And a lot of people are reaching out in terms of like, you know, and it's private, so like a lot of people are reaching out. They're not so much putting up on their story and like, this guy's helping me, and I hope to make it there one day, but like that's not the focus, you know. Like I'd rather like one silent person reach out to me who I haven't really met face to face, and like, hey, you helped me get through this day, or like, hey, I've thought about XYZ, and like dark notes, and really just like, hey, you helped me out in XYZ, and like we'll just leave that there. But it's also it stems down to I don't know, you know, a lot of times I do talk about myself, and I don't know if I'm necessarily conceited in that fashion, because a lot of times when I do talk about myself, and when I often do, depending on the crowd I'm with, I don't really do it to talk on myself. I do it to talk on the work. So when I'm like, hey, I'm doing this, and that, I'm not telling you like, hey, I'm this big guy that's doing it, because I am a nobody. But it's just like when I'm telling you is like, yeah, that when I do express that story, it's just like, hey, I did this. I'm, you know, like we accomplished that. We put this many hours in and we did it. So like when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about like the laborious hours, or just like the creative hours that it took for us to create it. And I often don't sit down and give time to shed light on that, because of just like, we're in a weird, like the social realm is just like it's a vicious animal. Like when you talk on victories and successes, it, you know, like depending on the crowd it comes across, it's like, oh, he's egotistical or braggadocious, or she's flaunting and doing this and doing that. And it's like, there's people that can't, you know, like there's always that crowd that are just like the negative Nancys, or like the Karens and stuff like that, where like everything you say is wrong. Like, no, you can't, it would, you know. And I never got that. Like if you got it, you got it, you know. Like the problem is like when people that don't have it flex about it, that's when like it took like a negative turn in terms of like, well, is he actually doing that for the right purpose? You know, and like to each their own, I don't really care, but you're not going to find that in this channel. I'll never talk about something that's not mine, or just, or if I do often even repost stuff, it's like I tag my friends and stuff like that. Whether it be just whatever, accomplishments, cars, business idea, like whatever, I always give credit where it's due. And I often I don't really care about my name to that extent anymore. I mean, I used to be so big on like, oh, that's my reputation, but it's like, now more often than not, it's just like I just want to make sure I can help somebody. I don't really care about the name. I don't care about the, you know, I'd rather like somebody like post something that like, hey, I'm doing well, like personal training and stuff like that, and like not tag me even though they're working with me and stuff like that. And like, while deep down I'm like thinking like, yeah, you know, like I helped this motherfucker, and like he's, you know, proclaiming it. But like you do have to get out of your own way and do it. So like it kind of stings me when people do that. But it's like whatever. I knew like that when I level like emotionally, I'm just like, whatever. Like I ended up, you know, like helping him that much and stuff like that. So he got out of his own way. That was the monetary gain, even though it wasn't so monetary. But yeah. So I go. So what I wrote down is it's easier to harp on luck than it is our hard work. because when you talk about hard work, people often get bitter, and it's just a systemic value that kind of broke down in our generation because we can't even talk about any, like, nowadays the popular topic of discussion is hate, and then when we talk about success and victories and people doing well, it's like, this guy fucking handouts and he got lucky, so that's why, like, when people who work hard, they're often like, oh, I'm lucky and I'm blessed, because they often feel, at least from my level of perception, they know the hard work they put in, but it's like but they know if they express that, they're gonna be like, oh, this guy is full of himself, or girl is full of himself, and like XYZ. But like the real reality of it is like, yeah, I mean, it's luck is when hard work or relentless work ethic meets an opportunity, and it's matched on par, and like that's what creates luck. Like that's why a lot of times people are like, oh, I create my own luck. It's because, again, when the hard work reaches an opportunity and they go face to face, that's when something is created, because everybody gets lucky. But if at that point in time you get said opportunity and your work ethic is not up to par or exceeding it, you're often going to drop it, and it's now a lost opportunity. And I'm all of a sudden now like, I'm unlucky. So there's no like shoulds and like that, like there's no definites in life. So it's like, it's hard to even kind of vent and give advice and stuff like that. That's why, like, even I started off the podcast by saying this is like very opinionated and stuff like that. But this is just going to be a quick, I don't even know how long this is going. Okay, not bad. This is just going to be a quick intro in terms of like who I am, in terms of like the new eyes and stuff like that. And again, thank you guys from Just Lift and that family, and obviously Mike and stuff like that, for granting me the opportunity and allowing me to step up to the plate. But yeah, obviously, if you guys do want to support beyond the gym and stuff like that, I mentioned it already with Raw Nutrition and Revive. You can run up code Yanni in terms of like another way to support me and stuff like that. Or if you don't have the funds and stuff like that, or you don't want to support me on that wavelength, you can drop a like on this podcast, share it, comment, interact. I'm just looking to, and I constantly get guests on it and stuff like that, in terms of like people who are willing to just step out of their comfort zone and share their side of the story, because I'm not like I said, I'm not looking to be right or wrong. It's just there's beauty in conversation, and we don't have a lot of it nowadays because we're often so secluded and stuck in our own ways. So yeah, that's gonna wrap this one up. So for all the new eyes, thank you, and for all those who have been loyal and continue to watch, thank you, because where now my own home team meets the new crowd, I'm hoping to bridge new gaps and create new connections that we can just take to heights and stuff like that. And it's just really weird because I know, and for the new eyes, it's going to be hard. That's why I kind of want you guys to go back and like read up on me and like watch older stories and watch older videos and stuff like that. It's because this is the stuff that like we literally prayed for and hoped for growing up, in terms of like, I want to build a team, I want to do this, I want to do that, and like now it's like really coming full circle. And I don't, and I put up on my story the other day, I don't sit down and like acknowledge that like I'm doing so much, and it's like I'm getting tied up in like the long hours and the late nights. And not that there's nothing else I would rather be doing. I'm not saying it from like a stress perspective, though it is stressful. It's like, I don't know if good stress is a thing, but it's like what I want to be doing. It's the life I chose to take, and it's super rewarding in terms of like the positive affirmations, the like the DMs or the accolades, or just like whatever, just going through life and like, like, hey, like I saw you there, or like I saw that, and it's just awesome, because like I used to think, like I used to be that guy that like, and I'm competitive, so I'm just like chasing numbers, in like all aspects of life. And like for social media, it's always been like followers, subscribers, XYZ, or like likes and shit like that. But it's like, it happened when like we first verbally made the announcement at Just Lift that like and everybody, like that next day, I think it was a Tuesday if I'm not mistaken, and Christine and I forgot the older gentleman's name, but like a bunch of them came up to me, and I was just so flustered in the best way possible. I was like, holy shit. It was like 5 people in one room, 6 including me. It's like a weird gym hours, like noon or some shit like that. And they all came up to me, and I remember going to the bathroom and like going to the stall and like just closing it and like just like breathe. I was like really breathing, not like laboriously or like heavy, like a panic attack type of thing, but like just feeling the pressure, good pressure of like, I'm like, I remember just sitting down as if I was like gonna take a shit or something, because I don't want to be weird. But I remember just like sitting down. I'm like, oh my god, like it's really. And again, it's a small room, but dude, I'm telling you, like 100 people, couple hundred people, handful of people, 50, 100, 200, 300 is not a lot of people. But man, put 500 people in like one room and like all eyes are on you. I did it with 5 people and I was just like, I was amazed. I'm happy. Like I finally found what keeps me driving at like 25 hours a day, from like a momentum and like a disciplinary act of like perspective and stuff like that. I'm really, I'm wired. I'm excited. I don't really care if I'm tired or how I feel and stuff like that. There's a huge calling, that I'm just like grabbing and like yanking and like getting rope burns on, and like if it fails, fuck it, I'm gonna keep pulling, like, because going back to that whole like, if you don't pick the one thing, you're gonna lose everything. A lot of us are going nowhere fast, and I've found, like, thankfully that like this has been my niche and how I've been able to preach and teach my lesson and like how I can change lives and stuff like that. And it's just I'm grateful on all levels, to now the newly acquired team and the team that's been supporting me, and I'm just looking to grow it, and looking to grow with Raw and stuff like that as well. That's something that takes me on a global level, so that's on like from the community perspective, again on a very large but still local level with Just Lift and stuff like that. It's going to be the reach around my community, which is just this area and now over there. That's still no easy leap or no easy calling, but conquering that and then like moving on to the next, and just finding the small leaders along the way that are like going to help me, and like kind of creating that little content team that I've been talking about is what's going to be the next biggest and most hopeful jump for me in terms of like creating that team and like giving people that responsibility and trust to continue to grow with me and like kind of build that little small team of leaders to kind of like help me lead other people. So thank you guys. Thank you for the new eyes, for the old team, for the new team meeting the old team. And I'm looking to create waves, and I'm really happy along the way. So as always, all the gyms now in the description in terms of like if you're not going to either the Raw and Revive accolades, like anything like I'm associated with, coaching is now in the description. It's it's all there. So if you want any like further access to me and stuff like that, it's going to be linked in the bio. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and if you're new, I hope you subscribe to continue to listen. And like, I'm here for insight, or I'm here if you want to chat. I really am here for all of it. So thank you guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.